Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning, everybody. I'm honored to be one of the chairpersons today. This is the second day of the 5th Egyptian School and Conference of the Neuromuscular Unit. I would like to welcome you all, and especially Professor Ad for his attendance today. We are really honored to have you today with us. Our first session will be with our colleague, Sarah Ihab. She will talk about MRI patterns in distal myopathies. Okay.
Good morning, dear professors and dear colleagues. Thank you, Dr. Nagia, for this opportunity. I will talk today about the muscle MRI patterns in distal myopathies. The distal myopathies are a rare and heterogeneous group of disorders causing myopathic weakness at onset affecting hands, feet, or both. The term distal myopathy is usually reserved for genetic disorders, with few exceptions, for example, sporadic inclusion body myositis. However, weakness of the distal muscles is sometimes present in the acquired muscle disease. Prominent distal muscle weakness is also a feature of several of the most common inherited myopathies, including myotonic dystrophy type 1 and facioscapulohumeral dystrophy. Age of onset varies from early childhood to late adulthood. The pathogenesis of the distal myopathies are caused by multiple genes encoding for proteins within the myocyte. There are multiple possible mechanisms of myocyte damage. Here are the different proteins included in the sarcomere and the myocyte. This is the titin and dystrophin. Diagnosis is done according to clinical experience, and a systematic approach are important skills in the evaluation of a new patient with distal myopathy. The diagnostic process is complex due to high number of causative agents and the difficulty in distinguishing patients with distal myopathy from patients with motor neuropathies or muscular dystrophies. Based on the combination of age at onset, mode of inheritance, pathology, and muscle imaging, the number of underlying candidate genes for a certain disease can be significantly reduced, which helps for molecular genetic approach. We start by clinical history, general and neurological examination, laboratory tests, serum total CK especially, which might be mildly elevated or markedly elevated, nerve conduction velocity and EMG, which show myopathic affection. Muscle biopsy shows myopathic changes, may show rimmed vacuole. Radiological muscle ultrasound, muscle CT, and muscle MRI, next generation sequencing to identify most of the cases, whole exome and genome sequencing. The muscle MRI, we usually do whole body muscle MRI, which reveals specific distribution pattern of fat replacement and can detect clinically silent involvement of muscles. It guides for muscle biopsy and helps establish the diagnosis based on the recognition of MRI patterns, providing useful clues to guide genetic testing. There is a specific pattern of muscle involvement in the most important types of distal myopathy. The major types of distal myopathy are classified in this table according to the age of onset. Maybe late adult onset, autosomal dominant forms, adult onset autosomal dominant, early onset autosomal dominant, early onset autosomal recessive, early adult onset autosomal recessive forms, and adult onset autosomal recessive form. This is another classification of the different types of distal myopathies, showing different genes affected. Here are the genes many types of genes like the NO5, caveolin 3, dysminopathy, dysferlin, the Meioshi myopathy, Gini myopathy, Nonaka type, Lang myopathy, myofibrillar type 3, and of course the titanopathys, nebulonopathies. Examples of distal myopathy cases. Here is a picture of a case of Meioshi myopathy showing calf muscle atrophy here. The patient has calf muscle atrophy. This is the T1 muscle MRI sequence, the foreleg showing fatty replacement of gastrocnemius muscle. Radial pectoralis muscle atrophy and distal biceps brachii muscle atrophy. This is the histopathological examination of muscle biopsy from this same patient, which shows here there is deficiency of the dysferlin gene by immunostaining, and here is necrotic fibers here, the arrow here, dystrophic changes, and this is the control showing presence of dysferlin immunoreactivity positive. This is another patient with Liang myopathy and his brother. His brother has the same condition with increased connective tissue fat deposition in the biopsy. This case is a centronuclear myopathy showing genovalgum deformity here, and the foreleg muscle atrophy, hammer toe here, and preserved extensor digitorum brevis. There is marked variation of fiber size in the muscle biopsy. Here, different size of muscle fibers. Gini myopathy, it shows the muscle involvement in the early stages, mainly gluteus minimus muscle. Here with the red, here the red is the gluteus minimus muscle. Biceps femoris short head here in the thigh, the green one. In the leg, the extensor hallucis and the digitorum longus here. The orange one is the gastrocnemius medialis and the soleus. These are different patients with distal myopathies with D1 images at the mid-thigh and mid-calf level. These are also different patients. The first one is a patient with titanopathy, and my Gini myopathy here, nebulonopathy, and dysminopathy. Here is the patient dysferlinopathy, NO5, the spopathy, myelinopathy, and FLNC. The patient above is Vielander distal myopathy, shows fatty degenerative changes of the lower leg muscles. There are other causes of distal myopathy caused by different phenotypes of disease, like facioscapulohumeral dystrophy, myotonic dystrophy type 1, metabolic myopathies, centronuclear myopathy as a type of congenital myopathy, Caveolinopathy, telethinopathy, nemaline myopathy, sporadic inclusion body myositis, scapuloperoneal syndrome, distal spinal muscular atrophy, and focal motor neuron disease. This is another classification of differential diagnosis of distal weakness, showing other acquired myopathies. We have many ways for making a diagnostic algorithm. First, we search for the rimmed vacuole in the muscle biopsy, and this algorithm aims at reducing the number of genes qualified for possible molecular genetic testing using the morphological data. If we have rimmed vacuoles, then it might be myofibrillar myopathy, yes or no. If we don't have rimmed vacuoles, we make muscle imaging findings in the lower leg. If anterior, we have nebuline, mixed dysferlin, posterior dysferlin, NO5. If we don't have, if we have rimmed vacuoles but no myofibrillar myopathy, if the anterior muscles of the foreleg are affected, then it may be geni or titinopathy. If the posterior muscles are more affected, then it might be myotelinopathy. This algorithm is used to classify the patients according to the age of onset, pediatric onset, adult onset, if it is autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive. In each type, we have if the anterior foreleg or the posterior foreleg, if the upper extremities are included or not. Patterns of muscle involvement in different types of distal myopathies. This is a literature-based pattern of muscle involvement by MRI in distal myopathies, which is used for probable diagnosis of distal myopathy. In cases of late onset, more than 40 years, we have here the muscles which are affected are black, indicated dark. The black indicates muscle generally spare, but the muscles with strips means highly variable involvement. Each type of muscle distal myopathy has a different distribution of muscle affection. Here are the types which caused juvenile onset of distal myopathy. Above it is a dysminopathy, distal dysferlinopathy, distal NO5, and geni myopathy. Childhood onset, distal myopathy, distal nebuline, and HMERF. Take-home message: the final genetic diagnosis of distal myopathy is necessary to avoid wrong treatments and serious complications. Muscle MRI is useful for targeting the best muscle to biopsy, guide the genetic testing, interpret complex genetic results obtained by next-generation sequencing, and help avoiding misdiagnosis, like in cases of inclusion body myositis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Very nice presentation. On the personal level, I'm very proud to see one of my colleagues at this good level of knowledge. This is not new for the neuromuscular team. We are all students of Dr. Nagia, by the way. Everything we know about muscle is from Dr. Nagia, I have to say so. The other thing that my mind is blown by the advances in the genetic basis of the distal myopathies. My master degree was 2007. Most of those genes are not discovered yet. It's a very big advance I can see. So thank you, Sarah, for sharing with us.
Of course, I have to comment. So, I have 3 comments. First, to the nomenclature. Yes, distal myopathy is a term used for this, but actually, the diseases are dystrophic. They lead to continuous loss of muscle tissue and replacement by fat and connective tissue, as with the limb girdles. Just the location is different. But for historical reasons, the myopathy term is there. It was introduced by Welander in Sweden when she made her thesis on Welander distal myopathy, and since then it has just remained. My second comment is that the main distinction is always against neurogenic distal weakness, because that's more common to have a distal weakness in hands and feet due to neurogenic background. And one point for differentiating clinically was taken out there, the preservation of the extensor digitorum brevis muscles. Do you check them routinely? Yes, after if they are present in a patient with the distal foot weakness, then it can't be neurogenic, because the EDB muscles go first before the lower leg muscles disappear. Another clue, clinical clue, is if you have heavy distal weakness and atrophies in the leg muscles, and if you have a preserved Achilles tendon reflex, no neurogenic. So these are basic clinical. So if you have a preserved Achilles tendon reflex, it is not neurogenic.
So preserved extensor digitorum brevis muscle.
And preserved Achilles tendon reflex.
But in many distal myopathies, it is also lost.
Can be, but you have to have very heavy calf dystrophic process. Yeah.
And the most common types are, we found in Egypt, what is the most common of this?
GNE is probably, yes, GNE has to be the most common. GNE is first, yes. The images shown were a bit complex, but usually it's that you can always have exceptions. But the rule is for GNE, first anterior compartment muscle.
This philolopathy is also common in Egypt. We found
Yes.
And it's very important to differentiate, as Professor said, neuropathy from distal myopathy.
And my third comment is regarding one of the types you listed, the MPD3 form. In OMIM, MPD3 means myopathy distal number 3. That comes from a family we studied in Finland 25 years ago. Had a complex linkage, big family, very good for genetic studies. Complicated linkage with 2 different loci linked, and we looked into all genes in these loci, could not find anything. And now after 20 years, we have the solution, a small intragenic deletion in the HNRNPA1 gene, and that's published. So you can replace MPD3 with HNRNPA1.
So we would like to introduce our second lecture. It's neuromuscular disorders, 360 genetic care by Dr. Muhammad Kamel. Please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and sorry for this technical issue. Thank you, Dr. Nagia, for giving us a chance to be here today. Our talk today is going to be about the 360 genetic care, or how actually we think about our patients. So my first question is going to be, what's the importance of genetic testing in your opinion? So why we do genetic testing for neuromuscular disease patients? Any answers? So we have to beat a little bit. That's good. The first thing is to diagnose the patient. The right diagnosis is going to be facilitate everything. Second thing is carriers, to identify carriers in the patient family. Third thing is prenatal. If they wanted to have children, how we going to plan this family? Fourth is a personalized treatment, because now there is a lot of available personalized treatments for certain mutations, right? Like the DMD one. Okay, and the last thing is the genetic counseling. How they gonna go through their lives? How they gonna live? What if they want to marriage or whatever? So it is very important to have the genetic testing and to have the results to make your patient life is more manageable. Okay, so are all NMDs have a genetic basis? No, right? So how much is the so internationally it's account from 30 to 60% of the NMDs with a genetic background or as an inherited condition. So some of these inherited conditions come with a certain mutation, and some comes with an immune response default, and some also comes due to some abnormalities in the metabolism itself. Okay? And there is a good portion coming from the toxicity from what we are exposing to. So coming again to genetic mutations, we can separate the genetic mutations into 3 main categories to make our lives easy. It's a certain kind of sequence variant. So we have a sequence variation. If it is a single variant or a multiple variant, it is a sequence variant. The second category is going to be the copy number variations. There's a change in the number of copies of certain exons or certain genes, like the SMN1 and the SMN2, the very famous. And the third one, which is really present in this class of diseases, is the repeat expansions. So does anyone know the mechanism of the repeat expansion and the inheritance? It is a certain repeats that's going to be expanded, okay, and that causes a certain, okay. So, and there's a very famous thing about the repeat expansion, which is the majority of the repeat expansion syndromes are autosomal dominant, right? So if I have a patient and I'm suspecting one of the repeat expansion and the pattern is autosomal recessive, do I have to go for the repeat expansion first testing or for the exome? And the pattern is ideal for autosomal recessive. And it is not a transgectasia. So prioritizing the testing comes firstly from the patient history. A lot of techniques that we heard about, like MLPA, microarray, Southern plotting, long PCR. So which one we use for a certain genetic disorder or for certain genetic mutations that we doubt? Actually, each and every kind of mutations has its own gold standard method. Like, for example, for the repeats, the gold standard is the Southern plottings. Okay, we do it with NGS, by the way. Whole genome sequencing can cover it, but the gold standard is Southern. We have to confirm with Southern. For the copy number variation, it's an MLPA. We do copy number variation with NGS, but the gold standard is MLPA. So if you have a positive results with the exome for a certain deletions or duplication, and you need to do a certain kind of prenatal, you have to confirm first with MLPA. Do not go for the prenatal or for PGTM, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, without confirming your test with a gold standard method. So if you have any doubts about which kind of test or which kind of technology I have to use with a certain patient, kindly ask Inheritance. We have an email dedicated mainly for this issue. Okay, what we call actually a 360-degree of genetic care. Across the last 7 years, we have faced that the patients actually, he is very lonely in his journey. So he is going to the physicians, getting certain list of tests that he have to do, go for the radiologist, do the test for the lab, and he is actually navigating very lonely. So we tried to a little bit focus with him and let's say collect things for him in a one page. So what we provide actually a certain kind of improving patient experience, mainly the inherited disordered patients. So we're trying to do a multidisciplinary approach to these patients. So at certain point, if he don't have like, let's say we have a patient from Yemen, and he is here in Egypt, and he don't know what to have to do with his exome results. So we start direct him to a certain physician, to a certain therapist, to a certain whatever he needs. Okay, and the last thing is the cross-talking patient-centered. So Dr. Naga is one of the of the best in this issue when we have a very complicated case and we need more input from the physician. So hello, Dr. Naga, we need to know about 1, 2, and 3. And she is very responsible, and that actually helps a lot in getting an accurate diagnosis for the patient. So at certain point, cross-talking between the lab and the physician is very, very important. So you have to have your patient results discussed even through email, through the phone, or even in a face-to-face meeting. We are here to explain and support. Okay, so the very famous one, when to use single test and when to use exome and when to use panels. So for single test, actually, we do recommend if you have a straightforward case, all things comes in the same way, and you are suspecting a certain disease that's more or less 1 or 2 genes, so go for single test. The other kind is if you have already a confirmed mutation, like I have a confirmed mutation from the West for the SMN, and I need to screen the other family, so it's a single test. Do not go for another West. Okay, so for panels, actually, when you have a broader suspicion about the case, and you cannot like limit it to a certain diagnosis, but right now we do not go with panel. Actually, we go with exome directly, because at certain point we were prioritizing panel versus exome in terms of cost effectiveness. But now some exomes actually are more cheaper than panels. So our beloved test, which is the whole exome sequencing, actually, when you ask for exome, you have to understand which kind of kit that they are using, because not all exome tests are the same, because like at certain point, there is a certain exome kit that covers the known intronic mutations. So it's an exome, but they cover the intronic mutation. There's a certain exome kit that covers the mitochondrial. So we can ask for a whole exome sequencing that covers the non-intronic with the mitochondrial, and we ask extra for the copy number variation. And by the way, certain repeat expansion can be detected by exome. Do you know which one of the repeat expansions that can be detected by exome? The Fragile X. Yes. Actually, it's inheritance exome. The repeat expansion of the Fragile X gene is located in a region that's already covered by a certain kit of exomes that you can ask for. So this slide is very interesting. Actually, I love it, and this is what makes difference actually. So this is about how we do it. We do it in a certain kind of cross-talking. So we have all the history, all the things, all the radiologists, the MRIs, the labs. And if you ask any patient that we have visited our lab, we ask him about every and each document he has, okay? Even if it is a handwritten, like a very short note or something. And actually, we do document all the things, and we dive in it to refine the case. I don't know a lot of labs that do those things, but actually no one of our patients actually have been diagnosed without having his own history. And all history here means all and everything that he have passed through. Okay, so if we have a positive results and that confirms the NMD, that's good, it's okay. Sunaga is happy with us and we are happy and everything is okay. So if we have a negative results, actually we have two things we need to think about it. The first thing is the phenotype revision. And the second thing is the width reanalysis. We are happy to reanalyze the sample 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 10 times, as long as that's gonna come in the patient benefit. So if you receive the results and you are not happy about it, it's a negative, and you need to revisit this. Just if you have a new clinical, a new finding, we are here to reanalyze. It's completely for free. But under one condition, that we have a new add info, okay? So if it is a new MRI, if it is a muscle biopsy, if it is whatever, we can revisit the data, okay? And that goes for 2 years. So from 2 years from the reports, you can revisit the data for free completely if you have a new clinical. Okay, so to have this accurate diagnosis, actually we have worked a lot to come up with it's a certain kind of like 5 points. Kindly try to address it when you refer the patient. The first one is the disease onset. It's a very, very important to know the disease onset, because there is a lot of genes, okay? And we can like differentiate between those genes and the conditions based on the onset. The second thing is the consanguinity. Please kindly write the consanguinity if it is positive or negative. And the third one, if there is an affected family members, kindly mention who is affected, because a lot of like prescriptions that's asking for exome sequencing and the positive family history. And so who is positive? Is his mother or his uncle or his siblings? Who is positive? Is he male? She is female. So and that's help a lot in like, let's say, narrowing down the options. So is it is an X-linked disease or it is a inherited? So try, if it is a positive family member, try to mention who is affected. So, and that actually help us to decide which test we need to go. At certain point, some physicians, they like this, actually. They ask for exome, and I call them back. Actually, we're going to go with a single test. If it is negative, I'll pay it from my pocket. Because this case, actually, is straightforward, the single case. Because we don't have to waste our patient money on doing tests that they don't need. So, second thing, in making difference is the counseling. Actually, a lot of patients are happy when you discuss with them what this test about, what they're gonna get, what they were not gonna get. And for the post-test counseling, we do not touch anything related to the treatment, the plan, what they're gonna do, because all those things actually has to come to the physician. But what we discuss actually in the post-test, what's the consequences? So what's the probability of his family member to have this condition or not? What he can do to confirm and do things, okay? First one is the family planning. Actually, we help the patients across the way, starting from the diagnosis to the carrier testing for all the family members, even for doing prenatal testing on amniotic, CVS. Also, when it comes to PGD, we are the first lab in Egypt that is doing the PGD diagnosis completely in Egypt. So we help the patient across the way, and we come to our last part of the presentation. It's a challenges time. It's a certain kind of questions if you want to share. So, which kind of inheritance is this? Dominant? No, it's not dominant. Think about it. It comes from female to male, but not back to his females. Huh? Yes, it's a maternal inheritance. You are completely right, but it's a mitochondrial. It's a mitochondrial material inheritance, because the maternal inheritance, it's could be an X-linked, dominant or recessive, but this one is a mitochondrial material inheritance. Why? Because the male father cannot pass it to his children, because the mitochondrial always come from in the oocyte. Okay? So our first case, it's a 37 years old male patient, negative consanguinity, negative family history, diagnosed with FSHD1, and unlikely his physician asked for a WES, and the WES came negative. What we have to do next? Exactly. So, is the WES was the correct test in the first beginning for FSHD1? Actually, no, because it's like 95% of the FSHD1 comes from the D4, Z4 repeats, okay, and it is detected by Southern plotting only. So, at the Y exome was negative because it's not covering this region and cannot actually. So, what is the importance of getting the positive results for this patient? What was actually the very important for him is to have a family screening for his daughter and to plan for a PGT, which is a pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, to have children without the condition. So the second case is the 36 years old male patient of consanguineous parents was referred to the lab for whole exome sequencing, suspicion of muscle atrophy and inflammation. He was presented with movement difficulties with a pain, elevated CPK and C-reactive proteins, negative myocytes antibody, negative list of antibodies. So what is the test of choice in this case? Is it autoimmune? Anyone with me? Okay. So we went actually with WES plus, which is inheritance WES plus, and homozygote sarcoglycans CE. Okay. Sarcoglycans E. Our recommendation was for family partner screening. If it is positive, we go with PGTM. So for the positive consanguinity and the patient itself, so his parent was consanguineous and the patient is a consanguineous marriage and he has autosomal recessive disorder. So the recommendation should goes for, sure, we have to screen his partner first. If she was positive, they cannot have a normal pregnancy. They should go through a prenatal or a PGTM. Okay, if she was negative, we are good to go, right?
But this pain is not the usual that sarcoglycanopathy comes.
Yes, exactly. So the third case, 11 years old female patient, born to consanguineous parents, presented with difficulties in climbing stairs, standing and recurrent falls. The disease began to manifest before 3.5 years. Given that her siblings are also affected, if further supported to possibility of genetic disorder, her brother had a negative results of DMD by Melba. So what we think about? It could be autosomal recessive. So for exome, and we have a pathogenic uncertain significance variant for CAPN3. When you have an uncertain significance variant, but the gene is working with the condition and everything is good, we have a certain kind of scaling for VOS. We call it cold VOS to hot VOS. Okay, the cold VOS, that's most likely it's with all prediction it's a benign. The hot VOS is most likely, it's very near to the likely pathogenic. So in this case, the first recommendation is to screen the male boy. Okay, if he was positive, okay, we go with a confirmatory test. Okay. My last case, 22 years old male patient of non-consanguineous parents, was referred to the lab with a muscular dystrophy, intellectual disability, and recurrent felling. The disease started to manifest at age of 6 months. By 4 years old, he was having trouble walking. By 12 years old, he was completely incapacitated. He has a one younger affected sister, and we have to think about these sentences. Okay. WIS was ordered, and we have a TNNT3 gene, likely pathogenic variant, and the heterozygous, and these genes actually cause an autosomal dominant condition. But autosomal dominant condition, his father don't have any symptoms, or the mother, but he have an affected sister. So what we have to do? It's a very challenging case, by the way. The last one, the last line shouldn't be here. We think about if it is de novo, but if it is de novo, because the father and the mother do not have the mutation when we do the segregation. Germ cells. Actually, it is a germ cells mosaic case. So we have consulted a geneticist from USA for this case, and he told me Muhammad actually tested the semen. So why? The mutation is present in the male, and the sister have the same mutation, and both father and mother do not have it. If it is de novo, it should not be rehappen again in the sister, right? But if it is rehappens, most likely it is a gonadal mosaicism. So the semen test was positive for the male patient, so for his father, and we come to a conclusion, like even in these cases, if you have a case and you suspect autosomal dominant, and the father and the mother do not have the mutation, and you have another affected, because it might be de novo. So, and you have another affected family member, kindly go with gonadal mosaicism test. That will help. So finally, our 360 comes to pre-counseling, testing, post-counseling, family screening, family planning, and taking care of our patient and sure his physician. This is our team behind all this work, and thank you. Any questions? Really?
Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions. Actually, I have 3 questions for you. The first one, if you find 2 pathogenic variants in a patient, so I'm not sure if this is in cis or in trans. So do you offer to do parent, either one of them, testing for free, or you will charge them?
So actually, that depends on the distance between the variants. Because at certain point, if the distance within like 150, 170 bases, actually I can give you the answer directly from the NGS. From the West, we can keep dive in the data, and I can extract this info. And we have it, by the way, in a case for congenital adrenal hyperplasia, whereas the child tested positive for double homo. So we were like, it's crazy. So it happens. So at certain point, we can do it in silico. We will not charge the patient anything. If it is, let's say, the distance between them, it's very far, we have to do a Sanger sequencing in each of them, and that comes with an extra cost.
My second question is, do you report the benign variants in your reports? For example, TIA1, for example, I'm looking, I know it's a benign variant, but I'm looking for it in some myopathies, and some benign variants are categorized as pathogenic lately. So do you include benign variants, or I should contact one of you to get the report of the benign variants?
Actually, you have to. So actually, you have to contact us, because by default, according to ACMG recommendation, we cannot report benign variant unless you have asked it to add in the prescription. Like when you're referring the patient, you write for me like a one word. Kindly, I need to know all the variant in this gene, even if it is benign. I give you a table with all the variants. But if you did not write this down, by law, I cannot report, because there is a lot of benign variant in the patient, even in this gene. But if you have asked us through the email or the WhatsApp or the phone, we will answer you. Okay. Yeah, sure. We have the data for 2 years. Okay.
Third question, it's not a question, it's a comment. So you recommend that I should contact one of you before ordering or requesting a test to know my options and what's better for me? Or I should go ahead and fill out the form and that's it, and then you will contact me if you have any question?
Actually, I'm happy with your questions. So actually, it depends. If you are pretty sure what you want, so go with the form, fill it. If you are in a little bit suspicion of which kind of test I need or which technology, you can give us a call. And when we receive the form, actually, we revise it. So if we find something that we need to ask about, we will call you. So, hi, doctor, we need to know about this patient, actually. Okay? I hope that answered you. Thank you. Any questions? Sure.
For variants of unknown significance, do you follow up with the physician? Do you follow up, sometimes they are recategorized or realigned into a likely pathogenic variant. Do you revisit this and reconnect with the physician, or you don't?
Actually, that's a very good question, because I forgot to mention that we are 100% Egyptian lab, so we have all our softwares and data centers here, and it is updated actually each 8 months. So each 8 months we revisit the VOS. If it is changed to a likely pathogenic, we call the physician. So, hi, Dr. Nagia, how are you doing? We have a patient that have been diagnosed like 8 months ago, and the variant have been moved. But what we are trying to do right now actually is the reverse. Because at certain point, some likely pathogenic variant have been reclassified to a benign, and we are trying to implement this. Our bioinformatics team will kill me, actually.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Actually, in the last few years, we started to have good results in Egypt. And Dr. Mohammed knew I was very angry 3 years ago when I sent a patient diagnosed muscular dystrophy. And even I know he will be a calpinopathy. Then the result is heredofamilial ataxia or a vasculopathy, small vessel disease. This occurs in most of the labs of the Egypt. Now, you started to establish your system of taking the history even by yourself and revise the physician which test and what we will do, and this is very important. I was interested today when you said that by certain whole exome, you can test for Friedreich's ataxia, for example, as a repeat expansion, or you can find some introns. This is very important.
Thank you, Dr. Nagia. Actually, you are very right regarding the very early beginning, because actually we were depending on a third party. So the third party gets the test, send it to us, and the history comes inconsistent. So we can not touch even the patient or the physician. But now we are directly to the patient and the physician directly. So, and that helps us a lot to improve the service, because at a certain point, you are doubting if you have the right sample, because you did not draw it but yourself. Okay, so come back to your question. Yes, there is a certain whole exome sequencing kits that provide primers that cover the non-intronic regions of certain genes. Like, for example, the beta thalassemia, the intronic mutation in the beta, the hemoglobin beta chain genes, it's pathogenic. So a lot of exome kits cover the whole gene, intronic and exonic. And in certain neuromuscular disorders, there is a certain hotspot intronic region that's already covered by this kit. But for repeat expansion, we can detect the Fragile X, not the Friedreich ataxia. So Fragile X, the FMR1 gene, because the repeat expansion is covered in the exome kit.
But do you do repeat expansion and inheritance?
Yes, we do it. Yeah. Okay.
I have a last question.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, this will be for Professor Oud, because I know he has his own panels in Tampere University for neuromuscular disorders. And when I tried to have these panels in Egypt, not with Dr. Mohammed, with another center, the results was very bad. Although we tried to include in the panel many genes of our neuromuscular genes, and usually the results were negative. So I returned again to the whole exome sequencing.
Yeah, this is a good point. We started with our in-house panels in 12 years ago. And the early versions were not that good because many genes have GC-rich regions which are difficult to sequence, or other issues with certain areas. And then you have to modify the panel to pick up all regions. For example, ryanodine receptor gene is pretty difficult to sequence. First part of FKRP is difficult, and things like that. And then you have to sort of improve your panel to cover these problems. And with that, of course, you can have a 100% coverage of your genes in the panel. And that is better than normal exome sequencing. And another advantage is that you can have a massive coverage on average. I guess in your exome sequencing, you will have a coverage of 120 years. So we are up to an average in our panels of 400-500. And then you have sort of easier also to check for other issues with genes, like loss of genes or alleles and things like that. So, but now the exome sequencing, exomes are getting better all the time. So at some point we will probably leave our panels, but we are still using them and improving them. We are adding genes over time. So we have a myopathy panel for some 400 genes. And one advantage is that with the in-house system, we have already from the beginning put in genes we think could be candidates for muscle diseases, not yet known to be causing muscle diseases. And yes, and that has that proved to be a good concept because we identified some 5-6 new genes that way. Yeah, excellent results. So yeah, these are the issues to be. And I would just tell you that in the research part, when we have done all our routine genetic testing in the clinical center in Tampere, and we move on to sort of research to find the causative gene in a family or in a patient, then we are doing genomes directly. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank Dr. Mohammed. At last.
C-invariant mitochondrial. What is it? Yeah. The whole exome sequencing plus it's a C-invariant mitochondrial genome. Nuclear mitochondria.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Mohammed. At last, what is the location of your center? And how much averagely does it cost to have a whole exome sequencing?
Can we answer this off record? Actually, the center is in Zahra Al Maadi, in front of Carrefour.
Yes.
But regarding the prices, I will leave it to Dr. Shaimaa.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, at last lecture, we have Dr. Mustafa Muhammad Mustafa. It's about neuromuscular disorders, workplace accommodations. So please.
لسه بنتعرف اول مره بس هو صديق احمد عادل. طبعا عندنا كوميونتي ميديسن قلنا بقى هيخش في التيم معانا. لازم نستفيد من كل ايوه
So it's a pleasure to be here in such a nice conference, and it's new to me to be in the neuromuscular department, and I would like to thank Dr. Nagia for this opportunity. And actually, let me tell you what I'm going to say and why I'm here. So the thing is, I work in occupational medicine, and I work now I'm the deputy director of the disability center in Champs University for the students. And we work a lot with the students to have the accessibilities they need during their studying in the different faculties. And what I have seen is very little accommodation can be done for students who have disabilities, different kind of disabilities to be done. And this relates directly to my work as an occupational physician. I work at occupational medicine, and this is why we will talk about the workplace. Why we're going to talk about that? Because simply everyone needs to work. Everyone needs to be functioning. Everyone needs to have a dignity in his life. So especially the neuromuscular disorders that appear later in life, say after puberty or after graduation in middle years, these would have to have some accommodation in the workplace. It might be not that fancy little presentation about genetics that we have seen now, but it's simple, and you find that very simple interventions would affect your patients. So first of all, neuromuscular disorders affect the muscle's ability to control voluntary movement, and symptoms range from muscle weakness, fatigue, fine motor impairment, and this is why I mentioned the symptoms: difficulty with speech and mobility, and sometimes it's related to stress and psychological aspects. The importance of workplace accommodation for it's allowing the individuals with NMDs to perform their job effectively and comfortably, and this is the most important thing. So we need to have some questions in mind before we have any accommodation. So the first thing we need to know, what's the limitations that this employee is having. So does this limitation affect the employee or the employee's job performance? What are the specific tasks that are problematic? Sometimes it's related to fine motor movement, sometimes it's related to body posture. Whatever it is, we need to ask about what is the exact tasks that we're going to tackle. What accommodations are available? If there is accommodation in the workplace already. And are we using all the possible resources? Sometimes there are resources, but we're not using them. Sometimes there's we can say accommodations or machines that we can use, but we're not available. We don't know about them, and we're not using them. Has the employee with an NMD been consulted regarding the possible accommodations or not? Sometimes the employee is there, and this is some kind of disability that's not obvious. Sometimes it's hidden, especially if it's weakness or fatigue. So does the employee know that he has a right and he has accommodation to consult? Also, once accommodation are in place, are they effective? Sometimes workers or the employers offer the accommodations, but these are not effective. Do we need to add other things or not? And the last thing, and which is actually, in my opinion, it's the most important, is does the supervisors have a training on what to do with these employees or not? So what are the common challenges in the workplace? First of all, the mobility limitations. Difficulty in navigating the workplace, reaching objects, moving between workstations. This is going to be a problem. Also, the fine motor impairments. They are be challenging in typing, in writing, using office equipment, handling paperwork, working with very fine movement. Also fatigue, which will be which will offer reduced stamina, leading to shorter work periods, and the most important thing is stress intolerance. They have higher sensitivity for work pressures. So all of these are the challenges. So what are we going to do? First of all, I'm sure that you know that, and I'm sure that even some of our buildings in the university are not accessible. I'm quite sure about that. But we need to have this accessibility. Accessibility is not a luxurious thing that we do. Accessibility is will simply affect, as you can see here, this employer on a wheelchair. What he's facing is stairs, right? If we have a ramp, is it serving only this employee? No, everyone, okay? So you're actually putting an obstacle. So accessibility is not a luxury. It's actually what we need to do. So offering by wheelchairs, scooters, accessible routes inside and outside. For example, this particular room, if I'm on a wheelchair, I cannot reach the podium. It's okay, but there is some obstacles in the way. Okay, automatic doors. This is a luxury, I know, but sometimes it's important to have automatic doors, accessible workstations, and making sure that materials and equipments are within the reach of the employee. And this is easy. This is not a structural thing. It's kind of managerial or something that we can do. It's doable. Move workstations close to others, to other work areas and office equipment, and sometimes to break rooms and to restrooms. It's really nice if I have an employee or I am an employer to move that employee next to the restrooms, next to the break rooms. Fine motor limitations, and I have seen that in Egypt, by the way. There is some companies that offer these kind of solutions, assistive technology. It's as simple as voice recognition, and you have software. All the computers now have voice recognition and have dictations. All the computers now have these. All you need to know is to know how to use them and tell the patient that they can use them. The light touch keyboards, the stylus, everything that's related to technology can be done. Also, fatigue management strategies. I have seen this, and it really impressed me. First of all, flexible scheduling. You have a flexible schedule so the workers can have multiple breaks, but also this is a very simple intervention, and it's an ergonomic workstation. It's a cushion that elevates, so it helps the patient to rise from the seating position. So it's really easy, and it can be implemented. Also, working from home. And after the COVID, everyone is talking about working from home. Before that, no one realized the importance of that. Sometimes you need to have text-to-speech or speech-to-text sometimes. And you can use alternative communication other than writing, like email, text-based messaging, or even written communication. Again, this is my area of interest, the stress management. You need to have mental health support for these patients in the workplace. They have to be understood. The needs of them needs to be understood. And we need to understand that these patients needs to work. So counseling and employee assistance programs, recently I have seen a rise in these programs in the different corporates in Egypt, and it's good. It's not there in most of the companies, but it's rising. There is relaxation spaces for these patients. As we said, they have fatigue, and also sensitivity training for the co-workers. As we said, the co-workers need to understand what the patient is going through. And this is our role as physicians, to have the awareness sessions everywhere. And this is why a conference like this and a talk like this in this conference is important, to tell people that all we need is to raise awareness so that everyone can understand what the patients are going through and then can accommodate for them. I know it's a very short talk, and it was a pleasure to have you here, but it was a pleasure to be in this presentation. But the last thing, the key message, don't forget to be creative. We don't have to have the whole technologies. We don't have to have every technology possible. Make sure that you know all the possible accommodations that are free. And I insist on free because sometimes it's really costly. And the thing is, you have to be very creative with your patients and with other companies. The last thing, I'm sure that you're thinking, okay, the worker needs to work or the patient needs to work. But actually, the employers need to have these patients. Because we can say that they are somehow having a disability, and this disability, due to our law in Egypt, we have to have 5% disabled persons in the workplace. So these 5% can be productive. So if you can have a productive worker in the workplace, the employers will be looking for them. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa. It was a very nice presentation. This is very nice, for sure. And actually, we are not very aware with these those topics you have talked about. We always neglected. I don't know why. Maybe we're not oriented enough with it. This is very important for the patient safety and patient functionability. Thank you very much. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much for this lecture, rehabilitation. I am wondering why in Egypt we don't have enough rehabilitation center to take care of patients in neurology and in psychiatry. And I found in France they do what we know as rehabilitation center for the work or to the work. I mean, using rehabilitation center to help patients to find a work.
Return to work.
To find work. And by using sports medicine and medical problems, center like swimming, like horse riding, like tennis, like we can rehabilitate neurologic and psychiatric patients. In France, they get fund from Europe. My Professor Odd, can you tell us how can we in Egypt take care of our patient from the European program like France? I mean, France, European Commission, how we can be in have economic help. For example, if you go to France, you have many rehabilitation centers in orthopedics, in neurology, in psychiatry, and to help patients. And even they give money to patients who are working. And in France, we call it AH. We call it allocation for handicapped patient, AAH. And we can do it in Egypt, but we need a lot of help from Europe. Can you help us? Thank you.
I'm not sure I can help much in this respect, but of course it is all up to what is your national health insurance system covering, and that needs to be improved. It's a political decision.
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa, so much. Consider yourself in our team because we have a lot to do to our patients. We usually go with patient groups and societies and do awareness days with them. So I think we have to do also. And we have to be human to have this accessibility for our employees and our students. And I found medical students in the last years, they are in a stressful situations. Not only the disabled, even the normal medical students, they are in a stressful situation. So it is also a part of your work, I think.
Actually, my work is the student support center
Yes,
in
yes.
the Faculty of Medicine, and then
Yes.
I moved to the
I will
disability
invite
center.
you to come to our new center in Ain Shams University Specialist Hostel. We have the toilets, we have arranged for disability people, but I think arrangement of the place before we start work will need your consultation.
I'll be more than happy, and I think
Okay. Thank you so much.
Professor Dr. Rana Al-Hilali, she's from the physical medicine
Okay.
department, and she's my boss, and she's great, actually.
I think Heba have a question.
Thank you, Dr. Nagia. Thank you, Doctor, so much. I want to say that this is very important lecture because sometimes that's all we have to offer our patients. Sometimes we don't have curative treatment and all we have just therapies to slow down the disease process, and all we have to do is to improve the quality of life of our patients, even if they have fatal disease and they will die within a few months, but at least they will live with proper quality of life.
Short life, but at least good quality of life.
That's very important. I have one question for you, actually two questions. Number one, all these measures, are they covered by insurance?
Not all of them, actually.
I mean occupational therapy and
this is
assisting devices.
I'm glad that you brought occupational therapy to the table. We don't have occupational therapy in Egypt. And
We do not.
This is actually a problem. There is no program in Egypt that qualifies occupational service. Most of them are either physical services or physical medicine, and they specialized in occupational therapy because it's different. The only program that I'm aware of is in the Galala University, and it's a new program. So there is no occupational therapy in Egypt that much, but there, hopefully very soon it's going to be there. But my advice is be creative. Be creative with the free, with all the free options, because they are there. If not, you can have all the treatments or the orthotics or stuff.
So as I understand correctly, so these devices are not covered by the insurance?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Second question about eye gaze. Is it available in Egypt? Eye gaze. For example, if the patient has to use a computer or iPad, but now he has severe weakness in his fingers and his small hand muscles, so he cannot use his fingers to navigate through the computer option. So sometimes, I've seen this before, sometimes they use their eye gaze
Eye tracking.
Eye tracking, and they call it eye gaze. So is
I'm
this
not sure, but
available?
I'm going to ask and let you know if it's available. But I'm quite sure that there's a huge body of work and businesses that are dedicated now for providing the accessibility tools, all the accessibility tools. So I have seen some of them in Egypt, and I'd be more than happy to send the information to you.
I'll be very grateful.
Yeah, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. By this lecture, we conclude our morning session. And thank you for all the entities. Thank you, Dr. Odd. Thank you very much.